everyone will agree that the monopoly of violence should be only with the state. And if there is any other center of power using violence as a mean to control, then there is going to be anarchy. And that is exactly what is happening in Manipur. And he also indicated that with the president rule being in Manipur, steps will be taken. But we have to look into why do our boys, the youths, took up arms. Because the state has utterly failed to defend the life and property, and the life, liberty, and property as enshrined in Article 21 and Article 300A of the Constitution. And only then these boys have picked up the arms. Now there is an amnesty going on for 7 days, which ends on the 27th. But has any representative of the administration indicated that yes, we are there, we will look into the security of the villages and the individuals, of all the citizens in Manipur, and that you deposit or surrender your arms? That assurance is there, never there. And there is total trust deficit of the people on the government. And that needs to be instilled so that people has a belief in the government that the government will do justice and that the rule of law will be established. It is not only what is being done, but the perception of the people that is important. It is perception that moves the earth. And there is a saying that Caesar's wife should not only be pure, but she should also be seen to be pure. And that is to be brought in Manipur. There is a very wrong narrative which he did not mention, but which is given in many of the statements, that when Cocomi declared war, it was against the Kuki-Chin people. It is not. It was qualified. Kuki-Chin narco-terrorists was the term used by Cocomi at the time of the declaration. Everybody agrees that members from every community participate in the drug trade, whether it is the Mayang, the Meitei, the Pangal, whoever is there is involved. But it is only one community from where members are involved in narco-terrorism. And it is against this group. It is not against all the Kuki-Chin. And in fact, when the government declares, when the government issues relevant orders under the ILP regime, they have indicated that anybody who has come before 1961 will be treated as indigenous people. Then why is the Kuki-Chin brothers not agreeing to the implementation of the NRC? That makes people believe that immigration is still going on. 1961, even though many organizations, communities say that 1951, the first census after Manipur merged with the Union of India, should be taken as the cutoff year. Government in its wisdom have decided that's 1961. And in 1961, if there is no further migration, then every person in Manipur should have accepted or agreed, or at least not opposed the implementation of NRC with a cutoff year of 1961. He dwelled about the census, and I have very little faith on the census of Manipur. And I will give you the reasons. Till 1991, there was a reasonable accuracy in the census. But political drama started entering in 2001 and 2011 census. So much so that in certain subdivision, the 10-year growth was 170%, 130%. There was objection from the state government, and a table correction was made. And those subdivisions where the growth is about 170% was reduced to around 130%. How can there be a 130% growth except through migration or through manipulation through the figures? And this is confirmed by the number of Aadhaar issued. Aadhaar is a cumulative number. And with time, the number should be more than the census figure of 2011. In some of the districts like Imphal, East, West, Jiribam, the Aadhaar Sood is about 106, 107%, whereas in district like Senapati, it is only around 56%. In Chandil, it's about 70%. That means the population figure that was entered in the census is not supported by individuals. So over-reliance on the census data in respect of Manipur is fraught with danger. Homen has also mentioned about the cabinet subcommittee where that Paul Hawke, the then minister, was the chairman with East Basendra Kumar and another Naga as the member, and they detected about 2,480 in a very short period, about 2 months. And there was some illegal villages, unauthorized villages were also detected. Maximum was in Chandil and Tengnopal. If the present crisis has not started on 23rd May, and if this subcommittee was allowed to continue this work, they would have detected much more. I have met with army commanders who says, oh sir, what is 1 lakh population? What is 2 lakhs population migration? We have got a population of say around 32.5 lakhs now. 1 lakh, 2 lakh makes much of a difference, and particularly in a very pluralistic society, a few thousand in a certain area can change the demographic profile of the region. We have seen in the election in Tengnopal, where an entry of 2,000 odd people have given a totally different electoral result. General Shokin was opposed to border fencing. And I have very little to say about border fencing because I feel that it is the subject of the center, which has to look into the internal security aspect, and the states will have very little say. And I do not know why the former Chief Minister of Manipur was dwelling on it, because it is not his subject. But if we look into the border fencing, the Pakistan border fencing started in 1980, then with Bangladesh in 1986. Then in 2010-11, the Burma border along the Mori Stretch of 10 kilometers was sanctioned. It is up to the government of India to decide whether there should be a border fencing or not, and it has to be depending on the feedback from the ground, from its security agencies. Our border is very poorly guarded, is accepted, because Assam Rifle with a force of around 46 battalions, which was involved mainly in CI ops, was given the task in 2004 under the one border, one force policy to guard this 1,643 kilometer stretch of road. And it will require at least 20 to 30 battalions to guard. And with about 14, 15 in the ground, and without border patrolling, laying emphasis on ambushes, there is no way to guard a border, because there is no border post, no border fencing. The latest information we got is that only 9.216 kilometers of the fence has been completed, and that even the side road has not been completed. But we should also remember that the mighty organization were against this fencing, and the delay is because of the opposition to this fencing. The reason is that we have to leave out huge chunk of Indian territory, because we can't fence on the border, right on the border. We have to come about 100 or 50 or 100 feet away, and because of the terrain, we have to surrender a huge tract of land. Once the fencing is on our side, the remaining part, which should technically belong to India, will be occupied by the villagers of the other country. So that makes it very difficult for the agency which is constructing the fence. And the way the things are going, it will take a century to complete this border fencing. See, about the increase in the population, I will cite an example of this Kamela-Gwaldave Reserve Forest. When the Darbar was announced this reservation in 1946, there were 7 villages, 1 Tangkhul, Naga, 1 Kom, then 1 Maring, and 4 Kuki villages. Now there are 52 villages, which includes 2 Naga, 1 Meitei, 3 Kom, and 46 Kuki villages. In between, sometime in the 80s, there was a Bangal village also, but after the Naga-Kuki ethnic violence, along with the Maring, they moved out from this place. So now there are 52 villages. And the sprouting of the villages from 1946 to till now, by some more than 1,000% cannot be through natural growth. It has to be through immigration. In a newspaper report in April-May of 2022, it was mentioned that in addition to the 2,803 recognized villages in the state, there were 966 applications for recognition of new villages. And it is mostly in Kuki-dominated areas. Then in a response to a assembly question in 2004 August by the Honorable Chief Minister, it says that there are 2,743 recognized villages and 50 new village recognition applications have been received. And in addition, there are 1,115 machets or hamlets. Machets are villages which are broken from the original villages, and they continue to pay the hill house tax to the chief of the original village. So whatever new in 2002, wherever claims for recognition has been made, they have converted into the machets so that their legality is not challenged. The tendency to look on any problems happening in the Northeast, and particularly in Manipur, from a macro level in Delhi cannot solve a problem. There are even claims now that the British administered the hill areas and the valley, and the Darbar administered the valley area in Manipur after the British conquest in 1891, which is absolutely incorrect. The British, under the rules for the management of the state of Manipur in 1917 and 1935, after the India Act came, Government of India Act came, the British administered the hill people, not a hill area. The rest by the British, by the Darbar. And if a hill people is involved in a crime or anything in the valley, it is the British who will decide the case. So much so that when Manipur got independence on August of 1947, one of the first law to be enacted is the Manipur State Hill People Administration Act of 1947, which was mentioned in Article 38 of the Manipur Constitution Act. The administration was not on the basis of land. If the land was governed by the British, then why should the Darbar be the authority to declare forests as reserve forests? It is all the reserve forest declaration during the British period, from 1993 onwards to 1946, was done by the Darbar, not by the political agent. So, not only in Delhi, even in Manipur, even bureaucracy sitting in Manipur in the Secretariat doesn't know the nuanced difference between administration of the land and administration of the hill people. Another point is that the term hill areas were first used in the Manipur Land Revenue and Land Reforms Act of 1960, a law passed by the parliament. And it was for the first time it was used. And this was reinforced by Article 371C, which was incorporated in 1971 by a constitutional amendment, where the scheduled hill areas were mentioned. I would like to make a general observation that in the Northeast, whenever a place is under insurgency movements, the first reaction of the government of India is to pump in money. Nagaland happened, Manipur happened, Mizoram happened, and the hill, the district council area of Tripura happened. Money was pumping. And there's no accountability on how the money is used. As a result, after 20, 30, 40 years, they have made very proud members of communities, indigenous communities, into beggars. And that is why for every small thing we go to Delhi to beg, because we have been made into beggars by the policy of the government of India. Despite claiming that Delhi doesn't understand the Northeast, which is correct, the so-called experts also doesn't even make an attempt to understand the reason, even though they continue writing books, coming out with high-sounding names. But the people of Manipur should understand that people from outside will not come to bring a solution to any problem of the state. We all together, whatever the differences, we have to sit together and thrash out so that normalcy comes back to the state. With this few observations, I thank you very much. Thank you again.
Thank you, Yampu. Now, I request Sri Miraj Sri Korimayum. He is the former president of Manipur Students Association Delhi. He will take on Mr. Sanjiv Krishan Sood, retired ADG BSF. Mr. Miraj, please take your time.
Ahalmaktida nasigi Cocomi na sinbi ve na sibu sarok yaba lakpiriba ima sing aduga lengshin biriba saknairaba academician civil society members aduga lamdam sigi active citizens puno po thamoy gyobe ka khumna bijari. And also I'm very much honored to be a part of this panel members, and so I'm really thankful to Cocomi team for including me in this dignified and prestigious event. My due regards to respected Pabungar Nimai, Sir Dr. Homen Thangjam, Sir Dr. Noni Arambam, Yamba Khuraijam Athouba, Oza Dr. Malem Ningthouja. And my general observation of Manipur ki Baat can be present in this way. First of all, when I'm watching all the videos, and then when my beloved brother Athouba asked me to join in this panel, so I have been watching it over and over for like 2-3 times, and then I have realized something. Number one, they have undermined, they have demeaned the idea of Manipur that we have. They're just presenting Manipur as just like is a fractured, totally disintegrated state. And number two, they're looking at Manipur from the colonial lens. They don't see Manipur the way we are looking at Manipur. It's totally superficial, and a lot of factual inaccuracies are presented in course of their presentation, which I believe is also a humiliation to the idea of Manipur that we believe. And there has been ignorance of the deeper understanding of Manipur history. And some of them perhaps totally ignore and the basic history of Manipur, and especially Mr. S.K. Sood, the retired ADG of Border Security Forces, which I'm going to take on his presentation. And also I could see the complete ignorance of the divisive politics of the government of India, which has been one of the major factors of what we have seen now in the state of Manipur. And another very important point where some of the speakers have endorsed and suggest the uniform imposition of armed forces special power in Manipur so that the military can have a free hand in the state of Manipur, which I believe is an insult, is a humiliation to those mothers who are in front of us, who have sacrificed the valuable amount of their time in protest against this draconian and black law, which sometimes one of the member of parliament who represent Manipur in the Parliament of India in 1958 said, a lawless law. And also I believe it's an insult to the supreme sacrifice of Pebam Chittaranjan. And also I believe it is another humiliation to the supreme sacrifice of the international icon of human rights, Irom Charmila. And now I'm going to take on the ADG retired of Border Security Forces, Mr. S.K. Sood. When Yamba Athouba asked me to also present some of the positive points for S.K. Sood, then I have been watching again and again. Even I have the transcript of his speech, but I could not help myself to appreciate any of his points because he doesn't know the basic history of Manipur, which is really unfortunate to make him be a part of that discussion which they call a road to peace for Manipur. And here I want to remind before my rebuttal or so-called, or before I'm going to take on his speech, I want to remind to the team of Manipur ke Baat that there is only one Manipur. We don't have a South Nagaland. We don't have a North Mizoram. The entire 22,327 square kilometer is under one Manipur. I want to remind this. So I'll start with the way some of his observation. Number one, Mr. S.K. Sood, he observed the problem of drugs in Manipur, and he was glorifying the poppy cultivation in Manipur. And he justified the poppy cultivation in Manipur in such a way that he said, he picked up one report, I don't know how far it's valid, and he said, the population that was involved in poppy cultivation was due to severe indebtedness. Further, okay, what he has justified about the poppy cultivation is because of the severe indebtedness. How irony, how funny it is. And when I listen to the speech of Mr. J.K. Pillai, I do agree a lot of his point, though I have some reservation, as rightly pointed out by Pavung Nimai and Sir Homen. I do agree many of his point, and it's totally contradictory to the speech of Mr. J.K. Pillai, where he said the drug issue in Manipur is not the issue of Manipur, rather it should be taken by the central government as national issue, because it has effect in the entire country. And he specially mentioned about the area like Kerala and Punjab also. So how can he glorify the poppy cultivation in a way that it is because of the indebtedness? The national policy of the government of India should reflect how they are looking at the drug management in Manipur. And again, if he is saying in such a way that, like, to address the drug problem, here I quote from his speech, we cannot simply burn crops We need to provide viable, eco-friendly alternative for the people, such as medicinal plant, horticulture, and cattle rearing. And then, who is responsible for it? That's my basic question. Who is responsible? It is the government of Manipur. It is the government of India. That is responsible for whatever he is saying. And to oversimplify the issue of drug in such a way, and to justify the poppy cultivation in such a way, that it's completely unfortunate. And the most unfortunate part of his speech is, here I quote, another pressing issue in the demand of autonomy by the Kuki community, let's see how he's justifying the demand of autonomy by the Kuki community. They have long claimed that the land in the valley does not belong to them, and that the Meitei kingdom historically only extended to the valley. This has been a source of grievances since the merger of Manipur with India. Mr. S.K. Sood, the retired ADG of BSF, said the land of the valley does not belong to them and the Meitei kingdom. And Mr. S.K. Sood, here, because of this reason that I told you that, you are completely ignorant of the basic history of Manipur. Here you are talking about the merger of Manipur, and I'm going to remind you some of the basic history of Manipur before the merger of Manipur. It's a small time frame after the lapse of British paramountcy in 14 August 1947 till the merger of Manipur in 1949, 15 October. On the 10th March 1947, the Maharaja of Manipur, the then Maharaja Buddhachandra, constituted the Constitution Making Committee with 16 members. Later, it becomes 21 members. And it was constituted in such a way that the president of the Darbar, that was F.F. Pearson, was the chairman of the Constitution Making Committee, and another two members of the Darbar were also made to be the member of that Constitution Making Committee, and two of them were S. Somarendra and Kazi Waliwala. And there were 5 representatives from the valley and 5 representatives of the hills. Here I want to mention A. Daiho, Thangabao Kipkin, Teva Kilong, Ar Suisha, T.C. Tiangkam. These 5 representatives of the hills who were made to be the member of the Constitution Making Committee that was constituted by the sovereign, the Maharaja himself, on the 10th March 1947. Then how can you deny this? If you said the hills doesn't belong to the Meitei kingdom. And then on 14 August 1947 to 7th October 1948, there was a Manipur interim government that took the responsibility of the governance and administration of Manipur, which was an independent nation from 1947 to 1948. And in the ministry, out of the 6-member ministry, cutting T.C. Tiangkam, these 2 representatives of the hills were made to be the ministers. And Mr. S.K. Sood, how can you deny this? And again, I have told you about the Constitution Making Committee, and when the Constitution was made and enacted before India could have won. So the Constitution of India was enacted in 1949, 26 November, and it came into effect in 26 January 1950, which was rightly pointed out by Pabung Nimai that by then India was yet to become the republic. And here, in the Constitution of India, it reflected about the reservation of the Manipur Legislative Assembly. The total number of seats was 53. Out of that, 30 belongs to Valley, 18 belongs to Hills, and 3 belongs to Mohammedans. And Mr. S.K. Sood, how can you deny this? And again, by 18 October 1948, Manipur got the first democratically elected National Assembly. There, the government that was formed at that point of time represent the true aspiration of Manipur, the true representation of Manipur from both hills and plain. And from them, the first speaker of the independent Manipur State Assembly was T.C. Tienkam. And the another important minister who is known to be one of the chief architect of the modern Manipur was Mr. Major Bok Kating. So, Mr. S.K. Sood, it's my humble question to you, how can you deny this basic history of Manipur? And then, I want to take on to his next point. Here I quote, I can attest to the lack of infrastructure and development from his experience as working in Chuchanpur. The district hospital in Chuchanpur was in poor condition and areas outside the town remained virtually untouched by any significant government and administrative presence. So he is trying to justify the underdevelopment as the reason for the demand of autonomy by the Kuki people. If that is the case, Mr. S.K. Sood, I want to remind you that the entire Manipur region is underdeveloped. No matter how you compare Manipur with any region of India, whether it is any of the metropolitan cities, or whether you can pick up any state in India, you can compare Manipur in the matter of development. Manipur is totally underdeveloped, Mr. S.K. Sood. And if you try to justify the underdevelopment as the question of the demand of autonomy, then that's really unfortunate. And if you say Chuchanpur is underdeveloped, I'm totally okay for the development of Chuchanpur. And likewise, the other district, all the rest of the district, including Tamenglong, Urkut, Senapati, Frejol, Kangpokpi, Taubal, Kaching, Bishnupur, all the districts are underdeveloped. We don't have many essential amenities and facilities which the other region of India are getting right now. And if we are looking at the history of Manipur, Mr. S.K. Sood, I want to remind you that after the merger of Manipur in 1949, Manipur became a centrally administered Parsi state which was governed by the President of India through a chief commissioner. So can you imagine yourself that a sovereign nation with a democratically elected government was reduced to a Parsi state which have governed by the President of India through a chief commissioner? And we got the status of Union Territory in 1956 and later the statehood in 1972. By this time, the government of India have already started the 5th five-year plan. And now you are trying to justify that Chuchanpur is underdeveloped, so you can justify the demand of autonomy, which is really funny. And also I forgot to mention some of the point that I really want to mention, that he actually, when I'm looking at his speech, he's totally ignorant about the basic history of Manipur. You know, some propaganda, built up by some of the vested interest people, like, Manipur belongs to only one community. This area the area of Manipur is few square miles and square kilometers, which is really unfounded. And I want to mention this, when with the inauguration of the Manipur State Assembly on the 18th of October 1948, there was a proclamation of the Maharaja of Manipur, Maharaja Budra Siddhar Singh. Here I quote from his proclamation. Let me dwell on the political history beginning from 24 AD. She had her dominion over a wide area extending as far as the southern portion of the gateway of Sivsagar Valley in the north and Chandrapur Kasar in the west. Her present area is 8,650 square miles plus 7,000 square miles of the hills, including 7,960 square miles of Kapu Valley. Mr. S.K. Sood, how can you deny this? And by Alexander Mackenzie got the Pemberton report of 1934, that the territorial boundary of Manipur is flexible from time to time, and by the time the boundary of Manipur was extended from Ningthi River up to 3 to 4 days journey from there and up to the Kasar Plain. This was the history of the territorial boundary of Manipur, Mr. S.K. Sood. And how can you deny this? And from his transcription, I want to take on to the next part.
To interrupt, but Miraj, it is almost 20 minutes, so.
Okay. Then I'm going to conclude it.
Thank you.
Okay. The most unfortunate part is he endorsed and suggests for the imposition of armed forces special power in Manipur. And here I want to mention few of the things. I have a report from the Human Rights Watch, and Mr. S.K. Sood, I want to remind you that there has been few committees formed by the government of India. It is your government representing you and the rest of this country. Here I quote from the Human Rights Watch. Human rights groups in India have called for the repeal for decades, and other voices calling for the repeal include the BP Jivan Reddy Committee 2005, Administrative Reform Committee headed by Birapan Molly, Working Group on Confidence Building Measures in Jammu and Kashmir headed by Mohammad Ansari. All of this committee formed by the government of India have recommended to repeal Armed Forces Special Power Act from Manipur and the rest of the country. And internationally, United Nations Special Reporters on Extrajudicial and Summary on Arbitrary Execution 2006, Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women 2007, and Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination 2007. These are the few international organizations that have also recommended for the repeal of Armed Forces Special Power Act from Manipur and the rest of the country. Here, you have the spine to call for the imposition of Armed Forces Special Power Act, where you justify that it will give the military a free hand. I'm really sorry for this. So, no matter how you are trying to undermine the aspiration and interest of the people of Manipur, no matter how you're trying to humiliate and insult the very idea of Manipur that we're surviving on, we'll try to fight for this idea of Manipur. So, glory to idea of Manipur.
Miraj, thank you, Miraj. We'll take a very short break of about 5 minutes because we have 6 speakers. 3 speakers have already spoken. We have 3 more esteemed panelists. So we'll take a very brief 5 minutes break. Please don't go away. Just 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
And my sincere reminder to our guest delegates, invitees, to put all your mobile in silent mode, and please don't make on the rear side we are getting little noise now. Kindly, we need a serious discussion. We are going on. The discussion is still in a very serious level. So kindly not to make any noise and put your mobile on silent mode. Thank you. We'll be resuming after 5 minutes.
Thank you. Please take your chair. Thank you for your time. Now I request Dr. Noni Arambam. He is an associate professor working in DM University. He will be reviewing the speech of retired Chief Justice of Manipur, Siddharth. Thank you, Dr. Noni.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Cocomi and Mr. Chair, for this very important opportunity. I think let's begin with the idea that this very gathering is important because we are celebrating the culture of dialogue, because we can talk about our differences with dignity. But at the same time, the concern is that when there's a warlike situation, the first casualty is truth. In some sense, I think this gathering is important because we are trying to look out for that truth, the significant aspects of understanding the Manipur question, which has become very intriguing in many sense. In Delhi, in Imphal, in many places, people have started talking about Manipur, but the struggle is still on what actually has happened in the state of Manipur. With this objective in my mind, I would like to appreciate the views as expressed by Justice Siddharth Mridul, because he has been speaking on the issue of Manipur for quite some time, particularly since his retirement. I think his views are important because his views reflect the non-partisan aspect of doing a democratic dialogue. And these probably will also help in resolving the problems that we have. Just to cut short, he actually was raising significant points on the need for disarming youths in the state of Manipur. He was also very much concerned with the violence that has been meted out against women and children. He was also worried about the state failure situation in the state of Manipur. And he also drew his attention to the historical significance in the context of Manipur violence. He also did talk about the significant presence of Manipur in the global level in terms of the culture, sports, and natural beauty. His take on Manipur question basically reflects his melancholic perception about the ongoing violence in the state of Manipur. And his views also, again, I say, that reflects a democratic desire to bring or reinstating of rule of law in the state of Manipur. He, being from a legal background, seems to be concerned more with ensuring the read of the state, in his words, acting boots on the ground. His ideas also can be used as a very important reference point for understanding what are the invisible hands that have actually worked in fueling Manipur violence. Though he did not define what he meant by invisible hands, but at the same time he did not fail to say that these invisible hands are not so invisible in real sense. I think he has a very good sense of what has actually happened and what are the invisible hands that has actually caused and fueled the violence in the state of Manipur. I think he is talking about the drug lords. I'm sure he's talking about the militants who are actually going far beyond the established norms of conducting any situation of conflict or any situation of movement. He is also hinting to the question of what has to be done. And he says that there is a basic problem in the approach of the mainland Indians because they have completely failed to understand and comprehend the problems in Manipur. He uses this word, comprehending. I think he is trying to say that there is a lot of misperception about the region and there is an apathy towards the region and the politics. And I think this is true to a very, very great extent because we have always lived in a situation of exception. If we talk about the kind of laws that has been implemented in the state of Manipur particularly, and the kind of division of people on ethnic lines, and the kind of ethnic laws that you have had in the state of Manipur for the last so many years, something about 70 years, I think this is completely exceptional and it has not happened in any other state of the country. Therefore, I think his idea and call for the mainland Indians to understand and comprehend the questions of Manipur is very, very important. On the other side, he also talks about, identifying the root cause of the problem. He pays significant attention to the economic factors. By economic factors, he hints to the question of demand for ST. He sees that there are significant size of population in the valley who wishes to become ST. He also talks about land imbalance between the hill and the valley. I'm sure he has a very good legal background and he understands the legal nuances of the problem, particularly when it comes to the question of ST or even land asymmetry. I call it land asymmetry. There are many political scientists belonging to a certain community talking about asymmetric federalism, land asymmetry as a very important marker of distribution of power. I think in this very idea of asymmetry, I think there is an unfair proposition of asymmetric arrangement of land and institutions in the state of Manipur. And he rightly talked about these points by saying that there is an unfair distribution of land between the so-called hill and the valley. Because he also mentions that there is 10% of the valley in which there are a lot of people, which is about 60% of population being hosted here. And people, particularly from the valley, do not have the right to possess and own land in the hill areas of the state. I think he emphasizes on this point, and that is a very, very important point to start with, how to understand the problems in the state of Manipur in terms of identity and ethnicity. One more important thing that he talks about, and we must appreciate, is about his idea of inequity. I think when he talks about inequity, he talks beyond the lenses of ethnicity and identity. He talks in terms of a general concern for empowering and development of the state of Manipur beyond your ethnic predilections. And I think he's very right to say that there are questions of development, may it be in the valley or in the hills. In his word, I think he talks about the sinking land question in the valley, and this land crisis he thinks is a very, very important aspect of understanding the economic front of the ongoing problem in the state of Manipur. I leave the other explanations to him because I'm only referring to the terms and the idiom that he has used in his speech. When talking about the way forward, he talked about seizing of illegal arms. He talks about boots on the ground being active. He also talks about bringing in a lot of important stakeholders who can actually resolve the problem and lead to a fruitful dialogue. His main concern is also about how employment in the state of Manipur is completely reliant on public sector. And he being posted in Manipur for some time, I guess it was for about 11 months, he knew it very clearly that there was a severe economic problem in terms of employment, because everybody in the state of Manipur, particularly youths, are looking for government jobs only because they don't have any other avenues of employment. And he reflected very well on this, and when he speaks these issues in Delhi, it has more resonance and significance, because we have completely been converted into a sick state, Anavalepa, because we are dependent on the center, and this ground in eight economic model is completely harming our dignity and identity, because it has completely made us reliant on New Delhi's mercy and the budget. He was completely right and aligned with our own concerns that our economy has been completely, failed because of the institutional models that has been implemented in the state and the region. Particularly, we have always been seen as a borderland state, and these borderlands are never to be reliant, and it was very well reflected in the letters which were written in the 1940s and the 50s when the Congress was ruling the country. And I think Miraj had actually mentioned a lot of good important things about how the idea of Manipur was always multicultural. This multicultural identity of the state of Manipur is being questioned today by denying the historical facticity of the state, and there is a design of discourse to actually malign this very historicity of the state of Manipur. The whole idea of talking about the idea of Manipur is to reclaim the democratic culture that we have had, and now all of a sudden we are actually forced to kind of defend ourselves, forced to tell ourselves that we were once multicultural. All of a sudden there's a conflict between communities, and there's an increasing misunderstanding between communities. And I think there is the situation because the designs of the institutions, because that divided people on ethnic lines. And it looks like the ongoing movements of the ethnic communities are actually increasingly harping on further division of the state of Manipur on these ethnic equations, which is completely against the historicity of our multicultural existence. Now, I leave his presentation here, and now I want to go to the second aspect of my presentation, which I think this is a very important opportunity for us and for me to speak on certain things about identity politics and ethnicity. I want to begin by claiming a couple of statements and propositions which I openly leave it to the audience and people who are hearing to me to challenge me in my perception and proposition if there is a need for that. But in the recent times, we have seen in the newspapers being written by certain community scholars. And I don't want to be identified as a community scholar because we have lived more as a collective identity, not as a community ethnocentric scholar. Coming to this point, what is the problem with ethnicity? That's very important for the Delhi people to understand. What's the problem with ethnicity? If you look at the speeches of Prashant Bhushan, he is completely, given the legal background he has, I think he has completely failed to understand the whole idea of state making. Manipur had a very advanced state-making process, and there was an increasing amalgamation of the hill and the valley through this process of state-making, and we are completely qualified to be called as a modern state because we have a long history of that kind of thing. When he was, I'm not encroaching upon the other scholars' presentation, but I think it is very important for me to dissect what Prashant Bhushan was trying to do on that day. He was simply trying to kind of give more further to the ethnocentric politics by saying that, of course, we need to redraw the boundaries of state on ethnic lines. That's really unbecoming on his part. He has completely failed to understand that there are overlapping spaces, and these overlapping spaces are important for democratic political culture. And he is giving further to these ethnocentric communal forces who are trying to, snatch away these overlapping spaces and resurrect new ethnic states. This is completely not acceptable to the very idea of democratic culture that we have lived through. Coming back to the other point, one basic problem that I see with the community scholars is that they are completely designing a discourse of generic identity. generic identity is a new problem I think we're encountering with in the region, and particularly in Manipur. I don't want to name these generic identities, but I would like to say that these generic identity, like achoba kaunlup ki rajniti haibatare, these generic identities are actually creating havoc on our multicultural spaces, because they are trying to resurrect new discourses by ending these overlapping spaces. And therefore, if you talk about the peace processes and its scope in the state of Manipur, you can see these ethnic communities, ethnic politicians actually not really interested in engaging with differences and the ideas or through democratic processes, because that will ultimately end up this very idea of generic identity politics. And the generic identity politics has a very typical problem, because they repress the diversities within this generic identity. And we see it very clearly. A lot of smaller communities, we're having 700 people population, 1,000 people population. These communities are increasingly having, a sense of threat because of the politics of generic identity, their dress, their culture, their food habit, their folktales, all being moderated to fit into the politics of generic identity. Therefore, I think we must keep on harping on this point, that this very concept of ethnic minority is a very problematic concept, because in the very identity of the minority politics, there is also a sense of majoritarianism, because they also keep on repressing micro tribes within these acclaimed identity of generic kind. Coming back to the other point, I want to also argue that ethnicity has made people very one-dimensional. There's a political scientist called Herbert Marcuse. He has argued that capitalism is making people one-sided, one-dimensional, because we only buy things which is promoted by capitalist logic. Similarly, ethnicity is making people one-dimensional, because they only talk the language of ethnicity and nothing else. This is a very dangerous trend, and we must actually intervene, and we must stand against this making of people one-dimensional. You are a Naga, you are a Meitei, you are a Kuki, you are a Pangal. This is a very, very dangerous discourse. And I'm reminded of the words and the thesis as proposed by Herbert Marcuse, that capitalism makes you one-dimensional, so as ethnicity for me. To the other aspect of the problem, this absoluteness of binaries has been projected by the ethnocentric political thinkers. We have seen them in abundance these days. And I think the mainland people have completely taken a colonial perception, colonial perspective. They have resided in the colonial perspective to understand the people in the region, whereby they're forgetting that these people are very multicultural in many sense, and they have a rich history and culture. And this respect for each other is beginning to be diminishing because of the increasing deep state role, where there are a lot of investments being given to actually strengthen these ethnic identities to pursue their politics. And I think when we say deep state politics, I think these daily based scholars, they're completely bogged down by these, this failure to understand the deep state politics that is increasingly manifested in the region called India, Myanmar, and Bangladesh borderlands. And we are actually beginning to be a victim. And in this game of geopolitics, there are deep state institutions coming in overt and covert form that actually plays with our multicultural identity. Towards the end of my presentation, I have been of the view that Manipur state is very unique, very distinctive, and it is very, very different from any other state of the country. That has to be repeatedly told in order to protect our multicultural identity. And I have reasons to argue, and I'm sure daily-based scholars and the advocates will listen to our views and have a rethink that Manipur, of course, is a different state. 6th schedule, for instance, was not meant for Manipur state. Even if you desire, there is a history to that. This state was not to be included within the parameters of 6th schedule. Coming back to the Article 3, which I have been arguing recently, I'm of the view, if you read Article 1 of the Indian Constitution, it says India, that is Bharat, is a union of states, which means India is not a federating state, which means the units will not have any right to secede or to get freedom. because all the units of the Indian Union were becoming part of India through the process of what you had in the Constituent Assembly. And there was no agreement, there was no covenant, there was no treaty signed between the Indian states and the Union of India. Thereby, the Article 3 of the Indian Constitution provides with the provision that the Union government, the Union Parliament, with an ordinary legislation can alter, change, or rename the boundaries of existing states. Now my point is, Manipur state is different. Manipur state, at several stages of its existence in the history, had signed treaty relations, had signed treaty agreements with the Indian Union. First. Second, Manipur state was not fully represented in the Constituent Assembly, through which the present constitution was written. Number two. Number three, even after the independence of India, even after the independence of Manipur in August 1947, Manipur state was met to sign, I repeat, met to sign the merger agreement in 1949. Given these backgrounds, we are a very, very different state. And it continues to be an entity. This entity has a different history, different trajectory. It has a different constitutional background. Therefore, Article 3, which provides the Union Parliament to alter, change name, boundaries of a state, should not be applicable to the Manipur state, given the history and the legal and philosophical background of Article 1. Because Manipur state had undergone through different treaty, covenant relationship with the Indian state, you like it or not. Now these are the legal aspects to which we can rely on and try to argue that Manipur, of course, is to be treated differently. And therefore, the integrity of Manipur is not merely its territory, its culture, its overlapping cultural spaces, and its multicultural population is to be respected. I'm sure the imposition of president's rule, as in the words of Justice Mridul, would bring peace and stability in the state of Manipur. But mind you, Manipur state is also the only state in India which has seen maximum number of president's rule. Now, what has happened to the state of Manipur even after having witnessed 11 presidents' rule? We continue to be unstable. We continue to be in turmoils. We are increasingly trapped in ethnic conflicts. Now, this is the time for us to question that the small states in India are increasingly facing instability because the bigger parties, the nationalist parties, are actually not working in sync with the interests of the small states. And therefore, small states continue to raise this question, particularly in the border states like Manipur, where your integrity, your historicity is being questioned over and over again. Therefore, in my conclusion, I want to say that this politics of generic identity must be debunked. The overlapping cultural spaces of Manipur state be protected. The unfair binaries which is being projected as absolute must be rejected. And we have enough historical, cultural, and legal parameters through which we can preserve our multicultural state called Manipur. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Noni. Now we'll hear from Dr. Malem Ningthouja. He's a very renowned historian. Dr. Malem, please take your time.
Salute to all of you who have gathered here today, Cocomi, who has invited me, my co-panelist, moderator, media, and the audience via internet who are watching this program. I'm supposed to take a review of Prashant Bhushan, who was one of the key speakers at the Manipur Ki Baat held in New Delhi on 18th February 2025. Let me focus primarily on what he says, what he represents, what was his ideological positions, what was his theoretical formulations or articulations, what was the intention, his method of representations, and what he stands for. Professionally, Prashant Bhushan is an eminent lawyer turned politician. But in these particular programs held on 18th February, he was representing himself as a mixed baggage of the ill-informed or ill-intentioned lawyer come politicians standing proudly for his client, and for various political reasons, he have even forgotten his credibility as a lawyer, and they're full of misrepresentations and anachronistic representations. Let me focus on, these are all interrelated. The ideological positions, theoretical formulations, intentions, and method of representations were all complementary and reinforcing to one another. The victim, as Noni pointed out, is truth. He was not there to solve the Manipuri issue, but rather to exasperate the situations on behalf of his client. Let me say, ideologically, he cunningly tried to project himself as a man of principle, standing for something called Swaraj, freedom. And it's a worldview, it's a big worldview, and where he would be obviously saying that powers are corrupt, men are corrupt, everything is bad because of power, and my responsibility is to help power myself so that the idealhood, intent, latent present inside human being is recollected and reinforced through a political movement called Swaraj India. That's the whole ideological positions. Everything is bad except when our party will come to power. That's the ideological position that he has held. So he was with pro-anti-establishment, he was with Aam Aadmi Party, but then he was not satisfied with any other thing, so he keep on shifting. So there is ideological fluctuations in ideal and utopian articulations that he is. Theoretical articulations and formulations where he's tried to project himself and the message that he conveys and the implications that it could have in relation to the Manipur disturbance. Let me point it out. Number one, he says he talk about decentralization of power. It means more power to be handed over to the deserving people who are claiming for it. He says, talk about a unitary state is not good, etc. These are all passing remarks, but something which I could clearly see. I mean, the intention is very clear. He talk about decentralization of power. It means more autonomy to the presumed fragments. This stems from the assumptions that everything that existed before the evolutions of one unitary structures were segments, and that needs to be, given some kinds of autonomy. But then these ideas arose from his presumptions that the boundaries that exist in today across the world are artificial. This is a pseudo-anarchist position highly endorsed by scholars, Western American-sponsored scholars of the borderland theories, which says that the tribes before independence were all independent. The whole idea of cross-border tribals and cross-border ideas and the demand for a what you call borderless border. In fact, it says it should be borderless border in the sense that the boundaries that exist today are artificial. It should be dismantled. If there has to be a boundary that comes up now, then it has to be based on either ethnicity or based on common assumptions of being a nation or whatever it is. So he's talking about like decentralization of power and autonomy, but then because this has to be carried out by dismantling the artificial boundaries that exist today. At the same time, he's very clever enough to say that, well, it's not timely for the established countries to dismantle their boundaries. Here comes his endorsements of Article 1 of the Constitution, where it says, India has the provisions to annex more territory, to add more territory, but no right to succession. Or otherwise, boundaries can be formed by parliamentary legislation within the country itself. So he's saying that, within the bounds of the constitution. So he's trying to, projecting himself to be an anarchist on one sense, where he talk about borderless boundary. But when it comes to India, he would support India's expansionist, territorial expansionist intention, plus keeping the integrity of India intact, but the possibilities of expanding more territory or the possibilities of creating more boundaries along ethnic lines. That's something that he is trying to endorse, and it has implications on the Joe Cookie, settler colonialists who have been expanding for a long time. The problem with this proposition is that Manipur has a totally different historical context. These boundaries were not artificial. It's not based on any conquest, but precisely there are various reasons why this and the historical context, how this boundary was evolved. That's a long history. I will not dwell into it, but my only suggestion to Prashant Bhushan is that when he is dealing with the Manipur situations and when he is trying to show Manipur boundary as the mechanically superimposed territory, that he needs to understand history. And his versions of articulations is quite suffering from imperfectness because of this eagerness to stand for the political cause of the client where he stands for. Therefore, these are the two main points that I would like to point out: ideological positions and theoretical articulations. Now the intention is very clear that he would endorse bifurcations of Manipur into various ethnic blocks, giving more autonomy to various divisive forces. But he fails to understand the context in Manipur and the level of the autonomy that's recorded or being sacrosanctly protected by the constitution, such as Article 371, Hill Village Authorities Act 1956, and etc., etc. He blindly jumps into the context and proposes a demand without actually understanding the context and the manner how different degrees of decentralizations and power devolutions have been enforced in Manipur, which is where he is trying to portray himself as a blind. Now, with all this intention in mind, his method of representation is quite interesting. He falls into the trap of what I would like to call, a dichotomous conflicting binary approach, where he tries to identify Meitei with Valley, Hinduism, majority, and culprit. And where he tries to show the other side of the victim as identifying with hills, minority, Christian, cookie, and helpless victims. This binary approach is quite dogmatic. This is where even the Indian left have failed to address the issues. These are already pre-existing and a very hegemonic template that exists in India, where it could have been successfully implied in many parts of the country. But the situation in Manipur is completely different. It's neither Hindu versus Christianity, which they try to show it as with some religious angles. You talk about the majority attacking the minority, or the valley attacking the hills, but truth speaks completely different. In the first instance, on 3rd May and elsewhere, it's the majority Kuki Joe terrorists who were attacking minority Meiteis living in those hill districts. And later on, it is the so-called minorities with sophisticated arms attacking the Meiteis in the Meitei-dominated valley districts in the peripheral and the vulnerable areas where they have been repeatedly attacked and their villages being plundered and looted. So these pre-existing dogmatic templates of showing the Meiteis as always majority, as always, Hindus, and then valley, etc., attacking the Kuki, Christians, or the minorities. These are not actually valid when true information comes into being. These are some of the corrections that can be made. There are so many corrections that one can make, but it's not time, actually, with limited time period. I don't have to deal on what he says. All that I am trying to say is that he falls into the trap of borrowing a pre-existing dogmatic binary approach. This is what I want to say. So methodologically, he suffers a lot. Then, interestingly, his primary attack was on the BJP at the national level. He says, like, BJP is responsible for divisive forces and etc. And when it comes to Manipur, the attack is not on BJP. Well, it's the BJP regime, but the attack is not on the BJP. But everything he tried to personify Mr. Biren Singh, the former chief minister, as responsible for everything. And when attacking, personifying the ongoing disturbance with BJP and leveling him with so many criminal charges without any valid verifications, this is where his credibility as a lawyer is completely damaged. And when he is trying to project Mr. Biren Singh as responsible for fueling insurgency, for all these disturbances that has been going on since 23rd March, he is covering up the facts. He is misrepresenting the situations, hailing one person responsible for everything, hailing the former CM as in absolute control of everything, that it is designed. That's what he's trying to say. He says, what he tried to say is that Biren is responsible for all these things, and he did it primarily because of his interest in illegal business, for power, etc., etc. While attacking Biren Singh, Prashant Bhushan doesn't attack the BJP regime. Maybe because there are many BJP MLAs among the cookies and he don't want to attack his client. That may be one of the reasons. But here in the context of Manipur, when he attacked India, it is the BJP regime that he strikingly in 1-2 sentences hailing the BJP as responsible for divisive policy. But when it comes to Manipur, his primary concern was attacking on Biren, hailing him responsible for everything, distorting and covering up the various agencies and forces among the Kuki terrorists, and even the involvement of deep states and the security personnel who are reportedly siding with the Kuki aggressors. This is something he deliberately tried to cover by overemphasizing on Biren Singh. So what I find from the overall his representation is like his understanding of Manipur's history. His representations suffers from oversimplifications, anachronistic representation of history, and intended intentions to further dehumanize Meitei peoples and decontextualize the history of Manipur with full of bogus and biased opinions, trying to justify the demand of such divisive forces to create autonomous regions, at the same time blaming everything to the majority. When he was attacking the former CM as a criminal and an attacker, he was also indirectly charging the Meiteis as responsible, because he identifies the CM with Meitei, with Hinduism, so and so forth. Like, so like by associations or by loyalty to the regime, it seems to me that he was attacking the entire Meitei peoples as responsible for the crime, for the crimes and the ongoing disturbances. These are some of the areas where he says he talked about the failure of the judiciary, talk about the failure of media and criminal regimes. What he fails to understand is that when it comes to media representation, he is also one of those which I level in the category of industry of lies, standing for the client, standing for a one-sided view, representing a completely distorted image, and trying to project Manipur in a totally different manner by selective representations of ideological positions and cunningly twisted theoretical formulations with ill-informed and underreported facts and figures, trying to show to the world that his clients are always right and the rest are wrong. These are some of the observations I would be saying. And finally, my concluding remark is that men like Prashant Bhushan, with lots of fame and all, should come down from these one-sided perceptions, rather stand for neutrality if he thinks that there should be solutions in Manipur. Now, Biren has gone, something which he had liked at all, and we have to see how and towards which direction India has to deal with the Manipur question. The situation still is under observation. It's an incubation phase. It may explode, it may not explode, but we will have to wait and see. But Manipur Ki Baat, there is very little thing to learn from men like panelists like Prashant Bhushan, but he should come out with change for a durable order in the disturbed Manipur. And when I think I should wind up here, it's not genocide as he pointed out, and well, I am sure he will have a second thought next time when he appear for a complex situations like Manipur. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Now we have the last speaker, Khuraijam Athouba. He is the convener of Cocomi. In his introductory remark, Khuraijam Athouba had clarified that Cocomi is not an organization representing Meitei. It represents the entire 34 communities of Manipur. It represents the soul and heart of Manipur. I think, please carry on, Khuraijam, please your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And with due regards to all the esteemed panelists, invitees, delegates, Imam Airapabi leaders, and everyone present in this room, media persons. My take is on Mr. Agnostos Theose. And before coming to him, we need to understand how this event has been organized. But we had no clue how this event has been organized, because the very promotional posters that they have been circulating in different social medias, it doesn't mention any name of organizers. So there seems to be a deceiving attempt to represent something else and try and do something else. So that is a very important issue or concern for everyone, that who organized what event, on what objective and on what purpose. But as per our research, our very limited research capacity, we feel that the entire coverage have been telecasted in a YouTube page endorsed by KSO Delhi and NCR. And the logo of the organization, it seems the logo of the organization are also on the screen. So we feel that this event, the very event that held in New Delhi, was organized by KSO Delhi and NCR, represented by Mr. The person whom I'm going to take on, Mr. Agnostos Theose. So I think it is very insignificant for us to observe and discuss on this person, Mr. Agnostos Theose, because he just don't have any credibility in the larger national platforms or state platforms or anywhere where he has any significant role to play. But over the course of time during this crisis situation in Manipur, we have seen him in some of the couple of interviews where he was trying and narrate his own idea of understanding, which seems to be quite significantly influenced by those groups who are on the other side of the this crisis. So, but if we go and look back in his other interview, he already has taken his position. And the way the event has been managed, we are quite confirmed that Mr. Agnostos Theose is a representative. He is a kind of, informal representation of KSO, Delhi and NCR. And they are trying to, project an event which looks like neutral, but taking the credibility or the advantage of those personalities who are on stage, giving their viewpoints. Many of them were eminent personalities of the country, and whatever they say could have a very, credible points, whatever they make among the general larger population of the country. So that's what they try and, use the platform. Well, coming to the point, what he has met, as he being the most active host during that event, we thought that we also need to rebut some of his views, which are quite, unfounded, and seems to be quite, vested interest. Number one, the first point he made in his opinion is that the arms were, he often used the word handed overs, arms being handed over, handed overs of arms. He has used it several times. He never say that looted arms. The whole country is saying looted arms, but Mr. Agnostos Theose says it's a handed over of arms. But I think if it's handed over of arms, then the first instance of handing over of the arms happens to be in Churachandpur. We have seen the video. First looting also happens to be in Churachandpur. We have seen the local gun house being looted, and CCTV footage were completely, coming out on viral. So, and there were also instances where the local youths were trying to, loot their arms from the armed courts somewhere in Bishnupur district. I think one of the attempting looters or the attempting, arms looting, attempting youth were also being shot at. So if that incident happens to be an handing over of arms, people would not have died. Which means that the word that he's using, the term that he's using is completely more of, his narrative is more of a propaganda rather than an academic debate where you have any substantial basis to justify what you are saying. So the incident that had happened across the state of looting arms was very spontaneous, and nobody was expecting that, and it was never a handing over of arms. We cannot simply conclude in that one. Number 2 point, he used the word martial law should be imposed in Manipur in May 23 itself, as more than 7,000 guns, 7 lakh bullets, and nearly 14,500 bombs have been handed over. And he even used the word, it's a handing over of weapon of mass destruction. This is the term. So he's trying to aggravate that very, unfortunate situations. In her next point, he said, our armed forces are now at risk and already losing their lives because of these guns. But as per the records that Cocomi has, till date, all the armed forces which Mr. Agnostos Theose is referring to, the central armed forces, and even the state armed forces, state police, everyone, whoever died during this crisis are from the bullets of the Kuki militants and Kuki terrorist bullets. Not a single armed forces died from the bullets of village volunteers that belongs to the Meitei groups. So what he is trying to justify is completely opposite. He is trying to justify that the looted arms are being handed over by the state to particularly to the Meitei Lipun and Arambai Tengol. He has mentioned it. But the losing of lives, armed forces lives, was from the bullets of the other side, from the Kuki militant terrorist groups. So he is contradicting himself in this line. Then he also claims that Arambai Tengol is now openly, proudly and publicly opening branches across the country. First, he tried to label the looting of arms as a kind of, handed over arms. And he fixed the responsibility to Arambai Tengols and Metil Lipun as 90% of the arms being, looted or handed over to them. Then he come into the point that Arambai Tengol has already started opening branches in mainland Indian states. And he has repeatedly written a letter to concerned state like West Bengal, Chandigarh and New Delhi. And he said there is no response at all. But there isn't supposed to be any response because Arambai Tengol are not being labeled or considered as a terrorist groups. They are cultural activists at one point of time. Because of the compelling situation, they have to volunteer themselves to defend the vulnerable villages and their own relatives and keen ones. There was a circumstantial compulsion that led them to hold up arms, whether it may be lawful or unlawful. So, but on the very program, Agnostos Theose tried to brand them as terrorist groups, and opening of their branches in other states is considered as illegal. But on the contrary, let's come into, if we look at the president of KSO NCR Delhi, Mr. Paujaku Guite, who was also taking part in that event during the interactive session. When he was interviewed by one of the media in Jantar Mantar and asked about the massive opium poppy cultivation in the hill areas, he said he had been studying in Delhi for 5 years. He has no idea about opium poppy cultivation. So that's the level of deceitful, character, I should say, they carry, and they can say it openly in front of the national media that he has no idea of poppy cultivation in Manipur. He came to Delhi for studies, he has no idea, and he is in Delhi for past 4-5 years. So that is where Agnostos Theose must pay much attention. Another point he made is violence and arms. Because of those looted arms, the 7,000 guns and other 7 lakh bullets and so, it may spread across the country. And it may also be, it must have also been exported out of the country. This is how Mr. Agnostos Theose tried to aggravate. But in reality, the problem is with the unaccounted arms smuggled from across the international border in Manipur over the past so many years, which nobody knows, and which are being majoritarily brought in by the armed militant groups who are in suspension of operations and many other people. Because during this conflict, people have seen several videos where American-made automatic rifles and several other sophisticated rifles which are not available in India are being used. Where did that come from? So did Mr. Agnostos Theose even had an idea of this severity of that, cross-international border smuggling of arms? Huge number of gelatin sticks and IED materials are being confiscated in Mizoram during this conflict. Huge number. He didn't mention that. Those are the things that is going to, spread violence and situations, terrorist situations across the country. Because those arms are being smuggled illegally and without anybody's notice. So it can reach anywhere. But those arms which are being, taken over from the arms court during the conflict by the local youths are maybe still, confined in this valley because there is no other means to take it beyond the state. You don't have a route. You cannot go by air taking all sort of ammunitions and automatic rifles. And we already take our position that narco-terrorism has already spread across the states in northeastern India. And we have already made our appraisal to the concerned state governments in Northeast to come in together to have a dedicated narco-terrorist cell or enforcement bureau so that the issues can be handled in a coordinated manner by all the states together. So this is the more serious question, issues than what Mr. Agnostos has been trying to propagate. Another important issues, he was justifying the imposition of president rules in Manipur. He even said that president's rules should be imposed right from the day one. But we feel that endorsing president rule over a popular elected government, endorsing president rules in a democratic state where parliamentary democracies are at its function, it makes no sense at all because these are martial laws. And Manipur already had a bitter president rules in the past, and we have experienced a very traumatic and very unfortunate events that has already taken place in the past. So Manipur people, including across party line, the Congress party president, the legislators of Manipur State Assembly, the civil society groups, the senior political activists, and many other, everyone was against president rule in the state. But even if it's against the interest and appeal of the entire population, the government of India still decided to impose president rule, justifying it through a very, designed or anticipated kind of political instability, which we feel that everything has been pre-planned and, to just justify the circumstances to impose president rules in the state. So in a democratic state or in a democratic country, president rules can be only justified when there is an external aggression and there is a national emergency. Otherwise, if you have a popular elected government, popular elected legislatures with absolute numbers, there is no room for president rules at all. The army has been operating with its hands tied, and hopefully that will change now. This is another statement made by Mr. Agnostos Theose. I think he is more into supporting the martial law. He wants the army to reign in Manipur. He don't believe in the democratic process. He don't want the people's representative to administer over their own people. So such attitude and justifying the army's role, army's aggression, is something that the separatist groups that belongs to the Chinkuki communities have been pursuing for the past 2 years. And it is in the same line Mr. Agnostos Theose is trying to pursue. In the latter part of his narration, he identified himself very clearly. Maybe it's out of, his subconscious state. While he was trying to quote the Solicitor General of India, he identified himself that the solicitor stated in court, Lordship, this is a Sikh gentleman, Sikh means the Punjabi Sikh gentleman with a Christian name, runs a business chamber and lives in Pitampura. He was quoting the statement of the Solicitor General giving in the court, but he's introducing and identifying himself that he is a Sikh Christian. He runs a business chamber. He lives in Pitambura. So the Solicitor General said he has no locus to issue any or to ask any questions or to show any concern in relation to the state of Manipur. We also feel the same, as I told you in my first part that Mr. Agnostos Theose has no credibility at all to discuss on Manipur. If he is taking position, if he is being a neutral citizen of the country, he can have a very holistic approach and he can appeal to both sides of the community to settle down, to come in a process of reconciliation, to come in a process of dialogue, whatever. But he has already taken his position in his previous interviews. He is now representing the KSO Delhi and NCR. And now he is identifying himself as, he acknowledged and he introduced himself that he is a Christian. He runs a business chamber in Pitambura and lives in Pitambura. So where is his locus again? We want to ask. And how come he could, organize that event without even having any, responsible organizers to take the responsibility of that event? And lastly, but not the least, I would like to conclude with these points that we are trying to, initiate such kind of engagement, maybe in the form of rebuttal, maybe in the form of reviewing, because over the past 21 months, many of the mainstream media channel, many of the people, if we go through the timeline of the events that started on 3rd of May, if you look at the timeline of event and the activity that's going on across the WhatsApp groups that belongs to those separatist groups, it is quite evident that everything was pre-planned, premeditated, and many of the national medias are being engaged in advance to pursue their agenda. And it took almost 20 months for us to, realize and take decision that such kind of misinformation and disinformation campaigns needs to be tackled, handled, so that some sense of truth, some sense of reliability should prevail, so that every concerned citizen of the country can take the can help themselves in taking judicious decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Athouba. Now we come to a very important part of this session. We will have an interactive session. I shall be requesting our esteemed guests to raise questions, to point out to the person they are raising the question. And we all know you because you are all esteemed persons, but for the convenience of those watching online, I shall be requesting those raising questions to identify themselves, so that people who are watching online, they will be benefited. So, but they will not be directly answering all the questions at one time. They will they will note down the questions, and after they note down the questions, all our esteemed panelists will give the reply one after another. So the session is, and I think our esteemed guests will not mind a cup of tea also. Thank you. Okay.
Our organizer will be providing a microphone, FM microphone, for your kind interaction.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Mutumyaremba. So I would like to throw in two questions, and one would be addressed to Dr. Noni Arambam, and the other would be addressed to Dr. Malem Ningthouja. And the questions concern two ideas, one concerning identity and another concerning justice. So in terms of identity, I think Dr. Noni has quite briefly spoken about it as well. But if we look into the times that we live, that is the 21st century, I think identity politics is here to stay. And in fact, the godfather of American political theory, Francis Fukuyama, has also addressed the same, that instead of ideas like human rights, ideas that govern the liberal democracy, now we are facing sectarian ideas like identity, which is the reality of the 21st century. So it is here to stay. So he is looking forward in terms of how to cope with identity and move forward with democracy. So how would you address that in terms of Manipur? Because I think identity question is here to stay, right? And second, to Dr. Malem Ningthouja, concerning the idea of justice, I would give the credit to Dr. Amarjit from JNU Center for Nordic Studies regarding this idea, because we had a conversation with him very recently. And it's that, so the demand from the other side, that is the cookie side, rests in terms of the separate administration or whatever they're demanding, it rests on some sense of the idea of justice. They think that if they get separate administration, they are getting some sort of a justice. That would be the core idea or the core philosophy behind their demand. But then the question is, will they really get justice? Will they be free from the chieftainship, from the kingship, if the demands are met? Which in one sense I think is not feasible in terms of meeting the demand. But at the same time, in terms of justice from both the side, from both the Meitei side and from the Kuki side as well, where does the scale of justice lie? Is it in terms of accountability of who was responsible, in terms of who was heading the government, or is it about who was holding the guns, or is it about who are instigating? Where does the scale of justice tip? So that would be the second question.
Thank you. I think all are requested to ask questions which are related to today's event, which are not related to some other events due to paucity of time. And for the convenience of our IMA and others, thank you. Next question, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My question is towards our...
I'm very sorry to interrupt, because so many people are watching online. Okay. If you can identify yourself.
I'll do that. My name is Laisram Briskishore Singh, and I'm here to, it's a wonderful session we are having. No doubt, this Manipur ki Baat has opened up a lot of questions, I believe so, in Delhi and others. No doubt, as our brother Athouba has raised the question, who are the organizers? But looking at the session, I believe out of the 6 panelists, 3 of the panelists have done justice to the issue. I believe so. It can be answered by any of the panelists whether the session done was justified or not. And my specific question goes to our Oza Homen Thangjam, as he countered Sir Pillai. I believe Sir Pillai have mentioned few points where the problem are to be solved by us only, because we are here and we are supposed to solve our own problem instead of running to the Delhi. And he has pointed out the issue of delimitations and other few points. So what are your takes on those? And even the ST demands, what are your takes? Because majority of the Meitei have the inclination, or majority of the Meitei population has been demanding ST status, and it has not been issue. And the issue of the GK Pillai Sir GK Pillai have raised a question about the I think the boundary issue also. What are your take on all those issues, and what are our difficulties, and what is the steps we are supposed to deal with? Because I believe he have given a positive point of view. Thank you.
We'll take 7 more questions, very short, very pertinent. A slight comment is also acceptable to us. Sorry, we can note it down. Maybe Oza Priyoranjan, he has been noting down all what we have been, all our panelists have been saying. He's very renowned. Thank you.
My name is Takalabam Sana Joba. This is not the question, but it may be suggestion or some comments. Can we take some legal action to those persons who have been given very wrong statement for us? Then can CEO like Cocomi can take any legal action to those? I want that. Thank you.
On behalf of the organizers, may I request Oza to maybe come on the dais and just give a brief statement. Oza Piranjan, please. Observation. Thank you. No.
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, I think this Manipur, should we say conference, is good for everybody. Why? Because that particular platform reflects how India's intellectuals and people interested in the Manipur conflicts are now coming to better senses. Narratives which were biased towards one community or another community are now softly disappearing. There now seems to be a common understanding in India, and more so in this Mann Ki Baat, that we need to solve the problem. We don't need to, in the words of Pillai, I think, do not demonize the other people. Look at how India's intelligentsia, India's power that be, India's influencers, you see, they are coming to the truth of the matter. So truth will prevail. Truth is now prevailing. So as one of the questions were asked, three of the panelists like Pillai or the Chief Justice or even Mr. Chauhan, they were forced by the logic of things, by the facts emerging, by myths being spun by both sides, they were forced by moral fibers or moral justice that no. We have to say what is good for the country and what is good for this state. This is the best takeaway of this Manipur Ki Baat. Imagine the Chief Justice. After all the participants are not Manipur experts, so I, for one, would forgive them for minor mistakes, but not for major mistakes. And therefore, when I think the way the justice, he tried to say that as if Mr. Sood had given us a realistic picture of Manipur's history, which he was not. Therefore, Mr. Sood felt very uncomfortable in endorsing this Mr. Sood. So these are beautiful nuances that tells you how India's mindset is changing. Okay, this is one. And Mr. Sood had the guts to say that, no, this Article 355 du jour, maybe no, de facto it is there. So these are people which a country like India or any democratic country have, who will be, as Homen said, who have wisdom, number one. Then who have also a contradictory phenomenon of, bad memories. So we are all human. So all these participants had bad memories, but major thing is that all of them had wisdom. Imagine the General Chauhan, right? We have seen him speak in different channels, especially in his own group, okay, where he has been one-sided, or he has been on the side of this armed forces and all that, you know. But in this particular Manipur ki Baat, after all, he began to be not militaristic, but academic, because he had some time doing a PhD. So he couldn't, you know, digress from the logic of the thing, from the humanity of the thing. So he was going all universal, you know, all universal, siding with nobody, not even siding with this thing, you know. So I feel that people like Shokin Chauhan, Mr. Chauhan, people like, you know, our Home Secretary, and people like the Chief Justice, these are the game changers who are gaining ground over extremists on both sides. In our panel discussion today also, I'm sure each one of us, you know, felt that some extreme opinions were addressed, just as some extreme opinions were addressed in Man Ki Baat. I want to finish with one remark. That, remember, the Home Secretary said there is no genocide. There is no iota of fact that there is no genocide. So that answers Athouba's question. Whether even this, you know, this conclave could be also accused of Cocomi, you know, organizing it, just as Keso organizing it, I don't know. You know, both of us are liable to these accusations of biasness, pleading for each other. I think in India, at least in the journalistic circles, as well as in the intellectual circle, you see, we are coming to their senses. It's time for us to pick it up and work for a solution, a dialogue. And as for last of all, the President's rule. Do we endorse President's rule, or do we not endorse President's rule? And I think Athouba was also in a dilemma. Do we look at the President's rule, I mean, in terms of justification, or in terms of a contextual situation where it just had to be there, and India government feels that it is constitutional. So, what lies before Manipur now is not questioning the legality or the constitutionality of the President's rule, but trying to, you know, make the best out of it so that our highways are, you know, made free. Okay? So the best of it, because we have a political failure in our political parties who cannot elect a chief minister. So it is contextual. So to me, as a senior citizen, you know, I think as senior citizens in India all over, we are realizing we are the ones who can solve our own problems. Let's solve our problems. Let us get the best out of everything. Let's move forward, not backwards. Thank you. Oh yes, one more thing. I'm sorry. About that population. I was just making a back of the envelope calculations, you know. Unfortunately, and I'll not go into the details, but what I found is that it's not 14% or 16%. When I made a calculation, look at this. Between 1881, this 1981 census and 1991 census, the rise in population was 66%. That is a growth rate of 6.6. That is it. Then within 91 and 2000 also there was a 3.6 rise. Okay, so what it means is within these two census periods, 91 and 2001, there was a rise of cookie population by 108,000 in 1991, and in 2001 there was a rise of 98,000. 2 lakh rise in a sudden rise. That is where the problem is. That is where the migrations have come in. And after that, it fell. 3.6 tong tar eko, but it is still too high. 2.8 tong tar, it is too high. Above, way above. But the problem point is at those 81 census and 91 census, where 2 lakhs suddenly population rose. That is unnatural. These things need to be looked into. Thank you so much.
We'll take just one more question. I think we will encourage, if possible, from any of our women or youth, because we believe in equality. So, yeah. This was the last question.
Yeah, especially this is something like, as Athouba says, we don't bother about this kind of unrecognized, discussion and all. Manipur ki baat, this we don't recognize, because these are fuck up, we are saying since, a measure who posted here only for 3 years, there he himself become a master of Manipur history. That kind of thing we have, there are lots of narratives there. We don't bother. We should not bother. Just we have to enlighten this kind of facts and figures. As of today, as of now, we don't see highlight. Say for example, what is coordinated attack? On 28th, I think. Do you remember on 28th of that same year? In 13 places from 12 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. in 13 spots there were attack. As of now, maybe in India, maybe in international, anybody, any narrativist, what you can say, who highlighted this? No one. Is it not a terror attack? Who highlighted it? So we just have to at least highlight those facts and figure. We must have, as you know, you have all the these timelines and all. Just you have to highlight, point it out to the national level. And as per say Dr. Homen, just I would like to at some points see. Being a journalist, since I've been in the field of journalism for more than 35 years, which place I have been when, from Singhat to Kumunom, not Kumunom, yes, Kumunom, Hingtam Kuno, there are 18 kilometers from Singhat. We have to walk by walk. See, this is only, I'm giving you simple example. If you go there, cemetery, if you go there, graveyard, you will find out. Born in there, died in here. Each and every graveyard, you will see. What is the evidence of this immigrant? This is proof that. See, born in 1958 there, inside Myanmar, died in here, grave here. That kind of thing you have to collect it. There are lots, even in Indo-Myanmar border in More, you will find it. Lots of, just I'm taking only this simple example. See, Kumunom, Hingtam Kuno, Hingtam Kulen, Hajrang, if you go anywhere, you will find it. Then again, one Yamung Nimai. See, talking about your census report. It's a very, funny part. Uripok. I'm from Uripok, and basically just I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Rattan Luang. I'm Vice President of Uripok Upon Maloof. I'm resuming our census report. Yamu is very interesting. Uripok don't have any scheduled tribe pocket. There is any pocket there in tribal village in Uripok. But 33, I think 33% of scheduled tribe voters there in Uripok. I think in the year, which year they have already make a quota for ward commissioner. Even this year also they tried. We, Uripok, we fight to the even court, even Mahot Minister also. We just ask, we challenge where they're from. So you're talking about 2011. Just we are talking just recently. We don't have any tribal pocket. Of course, in Imphal, there, Kakulong is there, Kesamthong is there, so many tribal pockets there. But in Uripok, we don't have any tribal pocket there. But 33% of the entire Uripok voter, from where they come from, we don't know. You see, there are lots of villages, I think Athouba might have known, they are in just after the Langol village. There are so many tribal pockets comes up. That also not recognized by the government, but they themselves call they're putting even holding also. And just you might have seen, if you go from Lamphel police station toward the Caesar hospital, you might have seen a long big banner there. What you call Saitu village, something Cocomi district. There also we challenge to the court and it's withdrawn. That part happened. And again, say about, Mr. Noni's remarks, it's okay. Yeah, lots of things, I don't want to highlight it in every, but my question is, we don't waste our time to these unnecessary debates, which is not recognized by anybody. So we just have to put our own. We just have to put our own narrative, but not particular community. For the based on facts and figures, that is we must require, because we need peace.
We agree to you. We agree.
Thank you.
And I shall be requesting Yampung to start replying from the right side. I think he just asked. He was commenting. Okay. Malem.
Well, Yoremba, let me be very brief. No. So, yeah. He was talking about justice. Justice, it's a concept. And every society, every country, or every organization is trying to enforce their versions of justice. And there is no permanent or fixed method and model of implying justice. I have my nephew, Leklai, who believes that there will be justice to the universe if the entire human race is destroyed. There will be peaceful. That's her model of justice. Likewise, coming short, power will decide justice. It will become the dominant version. Land belongs to the powerful. We have to see that the idea of Manipur would be able to be defended. It has to be defended through negotiation, diplomacy, and use of powers and arms struggles. That's it.
The last one from
my response to Dr. Yoremba's question, that was a very powerful question, but Francis Fukuyama is not very happy with identity politics as well. He uses this term called identity liberalism. And he says that this has problems because this has given birth to narrow identity politics of ethnicity, racism, religiosity, and white nationalism, etc. So therefore, so this whole idea of identity, that's what I was trying to say. This is not homogeneous as we are projecting to be. So therefore, identity politics has to be carefully re-examined before we talk about separate administration on the basis of identity. Thank you.
Last one.
Oza maingonda question hang birakhiba. Oza Birkeshwar. Aina ngasai ngangba hokdabadasu ahanbada GK Pillai appreciate tawjabani. Adugi Manipur ki baat numitsida mana ngangbaji 98% ti madi yamna without any bias yam chumna thamami haibadugi appreciation mathang loina pijaram le ijo amu repeat tawrani haijaningi adamana soiba haigadra hitang magi ju nakan namada yengbagi asoiba ahumdu khatang neina puthoksaramba yes akhoi masen phaminnaraga loishangadabani haibani mana haije mapan lomdagi any tom de gane harina post sauraga loishan be yaroi ada mana yam phajaba haibada charo marona dana leminaraba furuk ngaktani saunarure imung di palaga dum phajana leminaba ngamgi ba ngaktani kaidobagi noi masen wari sanaraga solution porok pangamoi toino haibani ahan namadawni yam phajana mana thambi makha tarakpadasu mana hairiji kari no delimitation tawgadabani Nagaland Manipur khatanga haure tawdribaje yambana aduna tawdabagi mangjabasina kari no political representation den samnai kanda androgi ji sum yengbada achingi ga de khoi ngangna giroise loi mayam jigi ngasi bauta whole statehood ki matungdagi hujik phawbada andro chakpa haibatare loi vodka gi phajong ni 3 times Ataiduna Maite Pangana Murakagi. Perhaps delimitation la the Moigizu on Chakpaloi Androgi Ama Hena Pangbiabagi Mongo Malakto never. Then Atunataba JK Pillai na Haibada Pasavama Mani Kojuluyaning Hygiene. Yes, border Giduzuma and Pazana Haiduni. National security gi su Malabani. Whole problem of drugs. Amana narco terrorism ga Haiba word to Buddhi Sinade. On the border cannot be left unguarded at them high ribaton. A question yadum. Hibadi Chavang Fire Rom Chatpa Natrayambo. Aduga some Nakan Yimanung, Irang holding Aida, Ozaprio, a Quakera, Chaseri, Maruoi na, some rifle na, Poche Puviaro na, Kana Yelak Padagi, a Quasi Kamaitos again, a Kobilois Lakumatunda. Aduda Leho River. Uninterrupted flow of people hired. Pansang the Sangapanga Yava. Adugia quit the Mangziba Mayamgan. I don't know border see a quit the Magtadi, Adum Pazana, Yangshan Bio Hivazida later. Fujiki, Moyangang, easy Paraga, border guard, and Sambira book the quiz already. Angangi Kunapa Mayamgan. Aduni, Aduna, Aduga, Hosana Hibaduni, Furubama Devona is Togano Hibaduni. I know word to sin na draga I know loisalak with the Hijaram Liba. Aquina me fruit to cookie loina mok narco terrorists night day. But Huzilla fight sisu Kulai Paiba, Mokoi militant sing giga Kanavani, Aduga Hendi Irang to a lazy canana no, Sigi Kulai Pairaba, Mayam Zigi, supporter Mayamnani, Hivan. So we are not demonizing the whole cookie community, we are not calling them narco terrorists, but Cocomi Magi official stance Tamza River to Neb. Only the armed wielders, militant, terrorized story, but Dukumagatan. And a Matamzu, late Ravanina, Quigi, Siergizu, Matamongta Pizagi, and I Tamako Pido Pizari.
One last remark from Miraj.
Thank you very much to Thomas Sajazit for giving me this opportunity. I ngasigi Manipur ki baat se nahi navakanda ikoina draw to way avaze Tamona rightly pointed out how Sir Homen su pukhalai vaze JK Pillai na haiba ze ai jo yam yaning ba ngasai dum ai haijari duni I nothing but appreciation yam tawningi mana rightly dissect to point mayam yauri mayam du de ikoina learn to way avaze sida phambiri ba masak nai academicians sing yauri Manipur ki koina respect orga lakshaba look up to civil society ki leaders mayam yauri mana haibam yauri the Manipuri should solve the problem kalamtan solve to we are mayam na mating pang bai wane noina sana solve to godong nes sida ikoi ki democratic spirit amadi free people ki spirit cha sida reflect to godong ne haibadune number 1 ani shubada insecurities ki matang ma hai every time ma khakten te Arambam na ngangbo egera moi yam toy haiba poni Nagas are insecure. The Nagas are feeling insecure. Cookies are feeling insecure. Maitais are feeling insecure. Chamana Pangazo insecure. Feel the wave. Everyone is feeling insecure here. I quick insecurity say Kanagi Mayok to know lies. Maitais are feeling insecure against the Naga, against the cookie. The same vice versa. Every community is feeling insecure against one another. I quite say insecurity is I quite liminary of Purupsa, machine Martineva. I quite say insecurity may feel those. See the yam toy season about term of Haragadi, notion of yam toy puturize. Maite Mukidore Naga Mutore, Cookie Mutore, Pangan Mutore, Havagi, Sigi notions in him. I don't say identity politics came atang the Francis Puku, my matang the hybrid as a South Taylor and Hiver. identity politics is shaped by the misrecognitions and absence of recognitions of one's identity. Insecurities, why don't we realize that Manipuri is threatened? Not Manipur is threatened. I don't realize the Wungam Drisika. I quite machine America, I'm threatened the way, Pangan threatened the way against the Maite. Maite threatened the way against the other communities. Naga threatened the way against the Maite and Pangal. Why don't we realize ourselves that the entire Manipur is threatened? I quite civilization is threatened way. I quite aspiration and interest is threatened way. Haibaki, Aduki Sheen, some I couldn't realize the Wungam Drisika, Sine. Sine Jeke Pelagi, Magi, whole species, they couldn't draw to way over. Potamadi, at least I could immaturity, my arms, all the sectarian forces, all the communally vested agenda, Punamak say, Luya Namdaraga, idea of Manipur, they could believe to one of idea of Manipur, they want to fight over Changi. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will briefly summarize what our esteemed panelists have spoken today. First of all, Dr. Homen Thangjam, he raised the issue of national security issue. He discussed about the Manipur problem. He tried to show that Manipur problem is not a Manipur issue, but is it a national issue? It should be a concern of the entire nation. And he also raised the issue of some people are spitting venoms on the communities of Manipur, like the Meiteis, and they are giving some wrong adjectives. They are giving some they are destroying churches and all. He clarified on those issues, and he also tried to give a brief report about the fact that the Meiteis, among the Meiteis, there are Christians, there are Meiteis, there are Hindus, even Buddhists also. Then about relief camps also, he gave a very good account of relief camps. And I would like to remind that the relief camps which the speaker was mentioning in Delhi, in Churachandpur, the former governor of Manipur, Anusha Uke, had visited the relief camps frequent times. The governor, the head of the state herself, went to the relief camp, and she showed to it that every person, man, woman, children, they got all the benefits that the government of Manipur was giving. And so there was no issue. Every person is getting what they deserve. Then Yambung Nimai briefly gave about the historical faults, and he also tried to clarify some of the misconceptions. Like, for example, people say the British India divided Manipur in such a way that only the Meiteis live in the valley, whereas the tribals live in the hills. It is not so. And he also gave a brief details about the NRC, about the census, the developments, and about the immigration from our neighboring country. About border fencing also, he briefly mentioned. Regarding border fencing, I would say that there are different types of border fencing. I will just in Manipur we have a single layer border fencing, and the Assam Rifles is deputed there to fence our border, and different battalions. For example, the BSF do the border protection work in Pakistan, whereas in Manipur it is Assam Rifles. Whereas in Manipur it is company based. And even though the government says that about 30 kilometers have been fenced, it is less than 9 kilometers at the ground level, and it is a single layer fencing. Anybody can jump in. It is not a rather fence. Then he mentioned about Khamenlong, where we saw large number of villages coming up, and unfortunately, if we look at the data Yambung gave, most of those people, they belong to a particular community, and they came from, if we are correct, from our neighboring country. And Yambung also briefly mentioned about the land laws, the inaccuracies in some of the data. And Dr. Noni gave a very good assessment about land, the inequity. He gave very theoretical and practical aspects of the discussions. Dr. Malem Ningthouja also, he presented the historical aspect. And I would like to add that some people, they normally said that our boundary was fixed to the valley areas. And we need to remind ourselves that we already signed an Anglo-Manipur Defense Treaty as early as 1762. And then we have to refer to Yandabo Treaty. Then we have to refer to Manipur Treaty, Jiri Treaty, even though in 1833, we have so many, the government of, no, we cannot say the government, the Kingdom of Manipur had signed so many treaties since 1762, and all had very well-defined boundaries. The only unfortunate part is that of our generation today, they are not aware of our history. I think there is a need to introspect in our own history and know the truth. And he mentioned about some independence about the people in the hill areas. I would say that people were independent due to the magnanimity of the Manipur kings. People were allowed to practice whatever religion they wanted to follow. There is one aspect which Dr. Noni mentioned. Then Khuraijam Athouba, he is the main architect of the entire show today. And I was very happy that when he called me up yesterday to be the moderator, and I said, I will surely do. In this aspect, I think what we need to introspect is people try to tend to call these civil societies which emerge out of Manipur as mighty civil societies. We have to break that cocoon, and we have to show to the world that we do not exist as for a particular community, but for the entire people of Manipur. Thank you, Khuraijam Athouba, for saying that. Then we have very young and emerging, he anchors very well also. Miraj, he spoke. He was quite sentimental at the beginning of his speech, but he gave a very well prepared presentation. Thank you all for your time. I think with this we come to the end. And before that, I would like to thank Tamo Priyojan for your good, nice observation to all the persons who have taken out your time, precious time to be with us. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our respected panelists, for your kind and truthful informations and valuable speeches in our panel discussion today. We now come to end this significant discussion. We take a moment to express our sincere gratitude to all our panelists, our esteemed audience, delegates, media personalities, and our dedicated organizers. On behalf of Cocomi, I extend my vote of thanks to everybody who are gathered here, especially our media persons, TV channel, Manipur TV channel, local TV channels, and Dr. Bishwajit Singh Arambam for kind sponsorship of this refreshment. He's still working in UK, United Kingdom. And once again, thank you very much for your kind extension of your help, kind help, and other necessary help. We invite all our esteemed guests for light refreshment and further this one discussion. Thank you all for participation, support. Stay connected with Cocomi through our newly launched YouTube page. Have a great evening. Thank you very much. Thank you all.